Markus Levin is the co-founder of XYO and a longtime technology entrepreneur with a deep experience in blockchain and data-driven innovation. He mined his first Bitcoin back in 2013 and has been building scalable, impact-focused companies ever since. First of all, what were you doing before you got into the whole crypto world? What's your background?
Yeah, I'm originally from Germany. I grew up there, and then moved around the world. I lived in like 7 countries or so.
Hmm.
Studied, worked, helped some companies, and then I started an ad tech company in 2011 in California, and that did well and sold. And then I started uh, the Bitcoin mining company, right? And then which turned into a distributed computing company for data problems for farm companies and hedge funds. And then I had a media company called Hive Media, which sold as well. And then I started XYO in 2018 with my co-founder Ari Troll. And the rest is history. And we're the first DePIN. Our product is 8 years old. Not many in crypto are, as you know. and here we are.
So take me all the way back to 2013 because people always say, oh, I wish I had invested then. But what people don't understand is this was a technology that was extremely speculative. It was just a bunch of nerds and geeks jumping on board. And some people put their net worth in this process that went up 1,000%, dipped 90%, and these people still held. And the amount of conviction you have to have and stubbornness to hold this through from 2013 is practically a crazy person. And people think that people back then were lucky. I would say that it is much, much, much easier to invest today than it was then. Take me all the way back to 2013. First of all, I know you mined in 2013, but I imagine you had some Bitcoin then. I,
Yeah.
I would love to know how it's changed over time.
Yeah, it was complicated. There were how many exchanges were there? Like 10 maybe globally. And then there's the top three exchanges, and mining Bitcoin was easy then. You could use it at a good laptop, and so we had
Yeah, you
millions
can have
of
like an old CPU or a phone lying around and you can make some
exactly.
money. It's just crazy.
Exactly. And people thought like, oh, people who deal with Bitcoin, they must be drug dealers or some esoteric hippies, and belong to this.
What was its first use case? The black market that
Yeah,
was shut
Silk
down.
Road. Silk
Silk
Road.
Road. Yeah,
Silk
yeah,
Road,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there
And
was some truth to that at the time, but
there was, but the idea of crypto. That's what attracts me there is this decentralization. Like, in the end, we're
of
like
course,
borderless hippies, right? We believe that we want to do things peer to peer. We want government to function in community and the economy as well. That we are all incentivized, to participate and get our fair share by doing that, and that there's not so many rent seekers around us. Imagine a healthcare system run on blockchain, for example. It's like today in the US, 6% of the healthcare premium goes to the doctors, the rest goes into bureaucracy and other crap. And
yeah,
and it's
spot
crazy,
on.
and blockchain can change that. And so I was super attracted by this promise. We're gonna be borderless hippies, gotta change the world, and obviously things have turned out differently. This regulation put a damper into things, and it went slower than we all expected, I think.
Yeah.
But things are happening, and
Well,
it's
it's
really exciting.
yeah, 100%. It's an engineer's dream to work on a flat playing field, but we have a context to work in. We got to work with our existing bureaucratic structures, but eventually the most efficient system will play itself out. It might take longer than we hope, but it will happen. And you mentioned the appeal of a decentralized structure. People often make the argument and that decentralized is intrinsically superior to a centralized system. It really does shift the landscape, and there certainly are trade-offs. A part of this decentralized infrastructure with cryptocurrencies, it spawned a whole new ecosystem of bad actors, a ransomware, where in the past, it'd be hard to build a system where you would ask someone to pay you with credit card, where you have recourse. You can go to a central authority to your bank and say, hey, this transaction is fraudulent, help me reverse it. we're seeing a movement here where there is no recourse. So security is paramount to none. If your security is exploited, there is nowhere you can go. And it really has completely shifted the landscape. I would see like these blockchain infrastructures be built on top of systems that A, we're comfortable with, but also B, like people are just scared. I mean, think of like sending an email. No one really understands TCP IP protocol, but they know that the email gets sent. No one understands blockchain. It's a very esoteric world, and we get
Yeah.
caught into it because you and I, this is our language, this is our vernacular. But your average person doesn't care at all about what blockchain is. They just know, hey, can I send you money? When they see it come in 3 seconds, that's the appeal,
Right.
the use case. So I think this whole UI and this whole integration is going to take time, but I don't think it's going to be like decentralized forever. And I know you didn't make that argument, but it's not going to completely take over. But I think there's going to be a synergy where systems are just going to be heavily optimized from it.
I think you're absolutely right. That's the key, right? That blockchain goes into the background and the solution steps into the foreground, right? And right now it's like you and me, crypto nerds, talking about crypto stuff, and that's a very small addressable market, right? What is that? Like 4% of the world, 5% of the world, like crypto nerds, right?
Yeah.
The other
If
95%.
only. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's the other 95%, right? And a lot of people who use crypto use it for remittances and so on. They're not really nerds yet, and so you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I think decentralization is the promise of decentralization is power to the people, and I think governance structures, through decentralization has shown that you can have governance, for example, in a DAO, right, and then you have a company type project below it, and so you can mix decentralization with profits, and you see that, for example, in DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, right, which have real business models and so on, right? They try to generate revenue and profits, and then take that money to buy back their tokens, for example.
Yeah.
And
Tell me more about DePIN.
yeah, DePIN, was coined by Misari, the blockchain analytics company in 2022. But the first DePIN project is actually XYO. It's our project, and it is DePIN in general means you use physical infrastructure like a mobile network, for example, and investors or participants own the mobile nodes in the network, which then create the cell network, basically. And the people who put up those nodes, right? They earn some tokens as the cell network gets used, and you use that for solar and microgrids and data collection in our case, and validation verification, and there's many use cases. There's like
Mm.
thousands of DePIN projects because it's sustainable. As you've been in crypto probably for a while as well. That there was these scam phases. In like 2017, for example, there was something called the ICO boom, right? Where
Mm.
from that time, 99% of those projects are not in existence anymore. And the reason is they didn't build anything real, right? Then the token value dropped and they went out of existence.
Yeah,
And so,
it's this weird toxic also relationship where like sometimes people want that meme coin vibe where like they want to know it's a stupid coin that no one wants, and that's almost like the backwards appeal to it, like Pepe coin or
yeah,
like chill coin. Like it's like there's no use case, and that's the whole selling point, which is weird.
it's weird, but it's awesome as well because it builds community.
Yeah.
I like meme coins, because of the community. People talk about it and then they say, oh, there's meme coins, but there's all this other stuff. They talk about the rest of the industry as well. But
How are robots needed to operate freely outside of this controlled environment? Tell me more about that.
yeah, robots are going to be part of DePIN. I think robots have a, we need to trust robots in the future, right? It's like, did they really do what they are supposed to do, or are they all coming together and take over the world? And so,
Let's talk about that. So
yeah,
before we get back to DePIN, what's your perspective on that? I mean, I feel like we just don't have enough variables to make intelligent projections forward. And I think there's some very basic questions on consciousness that we have yet to answer. Is this an emergent? Is this a fundamental property? But one thing that is interesting is the projection for general artificial intelligence, that timeline is constantly being pulled back. So I think it
Mhm.
was 2055, and it was 2047, and now I think we're in like the low 2030s. Do you think that we're gonna blow right through human intelligence, that what's in here is not fundamentally magical, it can be modeled, and if it could be modeled, it could be replicated? Or do you think we're gonna hit the ceiling of where LLMs are looking fancy, but they're really not advancing the industry and the science towards artificial intelligence? They're just becoming better in a very narrow vertical.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in AI and robotics, and I think the inflection will come when you have quantum computing being more prominent. You know, the first commercial quantum computers are supposed to launch in like 2027, right? That's next year. Uh,
Yeah.
and they
What
will
what
be,
what are the qubit? What company is so? There's the whole concept of quantum supremacy. That quantum computing is not this esoteric, magical conversation. It's being done, but in a very confined and limited environment with just a few qubits. But once we reach that threshold where qubits can start doing more than classical computers, that's where we run into serious issues. And I love how we're mixing this whole conversation here because we're talking about the three-pronged revolution here. We're talking about blockchain. We're talking about artificial general intelligence, and we're talking about quantum computing. And each in and of themselves can revolutionize life as we know it. These things working cohesively is going to have, and I know this is hard to imagine, it's going to have an effect greater than the parts. This is going to be something where we're going to have no predictive power of where this thing is going.
you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's what I believe in. You know, it's like all the problems can be solved, and then new ones created. You know,
But the threat is also there. And people think like these robots are going to be intrinsically malevolent towards us. I think that we're giving ourselves too much credit. I think we are insignificant. I think the threat is not that they will be uh, malevolent towards us. I think the threat is that we will be insignificant towards it, where we'll just be in the way. The same way when you're driving on a highway, you don't move around to cross ants, you'll ride right through them. If
Mhm.
you're getting a new real estate property and there's a beehive on your property, you are going to kill them without a second thought. Not because you're malevolent towards them, but because they have no value towards you. And I think that's the threat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might be right. Except if we are able to establish rules for robots, and
Yeah.
through
W-
blockchain, for example.
We got the keys. Don't worry. We're building gods, but we're ants with keys. That's the concern.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe if we create, you know, it's difficult to imagine now. You know what's going to be when the time comes, right? When there's AGI and so on. But I think. Uh,
Isn't it funny how it was like a pipe dream of like AI, 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 and then now it's like, hey, this is going to happen way sooner than we even predict.
yeah, yeah. I think it's incredible because it's gonna solve like, healthcare issues. You know, like all the
Yeah.
cancer, whatever kind of thing, is going to be a thing of the past.
The whole idea here is finding that perfect molecule. You got to go through millions of permutations till you find that perfect bind to create the ideal pharmaceutical.
Hmm.
And think of having like AI just optimize this insane data sheet of just a few potentials, and then having a quantum computer kind of try all these processes at the same time and getting that superposition where you get that one ideal molecule. What role are we going to play in this? And honestly, we're not going to be the people holding the keys. We're going to be the biggest liability impeding the process because it's like we're all monkeys talking about bananas. And they're like, no, I need to do calculus and I need to split the atom. And then we're asking, oh, can we split the atom so we can make more bananas? Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't really see the role we're playing here in the bigger picture.
I think we need to create a world in a way where the robots don't want to control, and maybe we don't want to control either, where it's like more like a cohesive togetherness, and like the hippies I spoke about earlier.
The hippies.
And and that
I
is,
getting
you know,
I get
was
anxiety thinking about it.
maybe we should. But as to what you just said, you know, it's so interesting with you know, with you need big computers, right, to do research on like protein folding and finding the right components
Yeah.
to figure out pharmaceuticals. You know,
Yeah,
that's
big.
what our Bitcoin mining company turned into. You know, we had millions of computers, and then that wasn't profitable at some point enough anymore, and you know,
Right.
hash rate went up, and so on. And so we turned it into distributed computing for cancer research with the University of Washington first. This was
Really?
our first use case, and you know, the 150x the computing power of their supercomputers. And then from there, you know, we sold it to pharma companies and hedge funds to do big data problems for them. But then, you know, over time they got very stingy with their data and worried to run this on a distributed network, and so we stopped that at some point as well.
Ah,
But it was really interesting. You know, that was the first DePIN in a way. It was to do this distributed computing and to do cancer research.
very, very cool. So I know we kind of went into the esoteric for just a moment, but in terms of a time horizon of just 3 to 5 years, where do you see the low-hanging fruit of opportunities that we can leverage the technology we have today for some really quick wins? So I know you talked about protein folding, but what else do you kind of see right in front of us?
Yeah, AI runs on three things, right? It's data, compute, and storage, right? And AI will be forever hungry, especially if we are speeding up the process of you know, developing AI, and billions and trillions of dollars are being spent there. And
Crazy.
so um, blockchain and DePIN can provide that, right? If you look at companies like Ether and IONET and others, you know, which provide compute, and others provide storage. And then again, other blockchain projects like XYO, for example, we provide data. So we collect real world data and validate and verify it and connect it with blockchain. And we started out with proof of location. So we're only doing location data. So for example, you use two IoT devices, where those devices do cryptographic handshakes to prove each other's proximity. As you have more devices, you have more handshakes, you get more certainty, and then you have build a relational map out of that. And on top of that, you can run I don't know, robots, right, or smart cities, self-driving cars, flying boats, and you name it. And
Yeah.
and so we built that in 2018, and then from there we tried to grow it and became basically a fully fledged data company collecting real world data, even offline data, like let's say cloud data or restaurant opening hours or whatever data you need. And I mean, IT devices, as you know, can be difficult, right? That's a difficulty of blockchain and crypto nerds, and so we launched a mobile app called Coin, and because we wanted more people to be in our network who are not crypto nerds, and with the Coin app, we make your phone a sensor IoT device which collects data in our network, including the location stuff, and that allowed us to onboard more than 10 million users in our network to collect their data.
Wow.
And we made it so easy that today 80% of the people who come in our network are non-crypto users. And now you earn points in there. Those points you can exchange for XYO, BTCs, PlayStations, or AirPods, sweepstakes entries. But 95% of the people redeem their tokens, their points for XYO. So we have this onboarding funnel bringing millions of people into crypto, and uh, and yeah, so we made it easier and easier, right, for even you and my grandma to be part of this, right? Now you don't need a wallet anymore. For example, you can directly redeem your XYO to your Coinbase email address. And so it's easy for someone to go to Coinbase.com, right, and just sign up there. And,
Yeah.
and so and so we provide a way for you to get free crypto in a way where our users understand the user interface, and really anyone can do it. And so we have these groups of truckers, for example, and Uber drivers, you know, who want to earn money on the side. And then for some reason, we have a group of nurses in New York, and it got viral there. And people want to earn money on the side. People are interested in crypto, want to be part of our community, and it all works for us, right? Because in the end, we want people to generate data, and that data is valuable, right, for AI and other applications, and the blockchain part is secondary to that. And build this, and I want to see that more in blockchain. We started with that
Yeah.
conversation, right? It's like we need like blockchain to go into the background a little bit, and we need to provide solutions, and that's what we are trying to do.
You're so spot on. I think that one of the biggest hurdles in the crypto industry is not the technology and making transactions faster. It's the UI, it's user experience. It's getting your grandma to be able to use this technology. Because right now, it is just hyper nerds who are using this technology. I think that's like the lowest hanging fruit here to get mass adoption, and you're spot on. I want to go back to those humanoid robots because they really are fascinating to me. I want to first talk about the physical limitations and then the intellectual ones, like their decision making ability is just growing. And we talked about this a little earlier, but how do you plan to build on transparency, resilience, and trustworthiness without relying on like a vendor or a cloud provider there kind of holding the levers?
Yeah, I think blockchain is really great there because you can validate and verify each other's data. So, if you collect some data for AI, for example, right, you can prove where it came from. So if the AI hallucinates, for example, in the answer, then you can say, okay, you're hallucinating here. You give that feedback, on which data is that
Right.
based, right? And then you, you can say, in the AI then says, oh, this was this data. And then you might realize, oh, it isn't actually not hallucinating. And or it's hallucinating and you can follow the trail of the data. So you have provenance for that data. And that's important. Like if you think about robots, right, they're gonna run their own LLMs in their robot brains, right? And so we feed them data before, but then they get data also in the field, let's say, where they're working, and we can make sure that the robot is doing what it's doing because with our data collection, for example, you can say, okay, the robot really plows the field, for example, right? So there's a proof of that here, and then you write an answer onto the chain, right, and say, okay, the robot plowed the field, and there's a payment to the owner of the robot or to the robot itself, and then maybe you can tokenize the data from the chain and sell the data as well.
Mm.
And there's lots of use cases around there, data collection for robots and the proof of work of the robot itself.
So as global demand rises for these autonomous machines, what are some key factors here to really help you achieve scalability?
Yeah, cost I think is big. Like robots need to be cheap to be able to achieve that, and like manufacturing, Optimus One, the Tesla robots, like Elon is always manufacturing first. If you look at his Tesla cars, right? But if you look at SpaceX and so on, it's all about making manufacturing as cheap as
Right.
possible. So I think that's a big one. And then uh, I think to trust humans need to trust robots. Trust is a very important one, and I think
Yeah.
for trust, anything where you need trust, blockchain has a role to play in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the trust issue, I mean, that segues into our next point here. What are some of the perhaps bottlenecks in terms of breakthroughs that need to be achieved for this to really have a practical use case in society? Because even right now, it's like LLMs are helpful, sure, but you still have to constantly like squeeze it into a right direction. Every time you probe it for information, you have to have a human now clean it up, calibrate it, and then take the next step. And I feel like humanoids would really need to flatten out that process where there's just a broader degree or broader spectrum of intelligence. Do you see any like big hurdles that you guys are really working on to break through and say, hey, this will make our product so much more successful?
I think it's sensors everywhere, and
Mm,
but sensors in a decentralized manner. Where like not all the robots are owned by Elon, for example. But, like it's like different people own and produce robots, and so on. So you have verifications from from in a decentralized way. And we are working, to have this a sensor network, right, through mobile phones, but also through NFC and other methods. Where it's very easy to have automated interactions of devices that you can prove, something was at a certain location, for example, but also that you can collect any sensory data, whatever is needed. For example, we think about these use cases where like farmers are taking pictures of clouds, and then taking pictures of the ground. The the uh, the data gets fed into a farming AI, and then uh, given to robots, right, to do what they need to do to farm better.
Mm,
And then the robot might give feedback from the field, the whatever, the soil is
right.
dry and it's out, or whatever kind of thing. And then you adjust it. And if you do that on a large enough scale, right, let's say you have lots of farms in a 100 by 100-mile radius, do that, right, then you can create really better farming, right? Because you get micro weather data, and you have humidity in one area and humidity in the other area, and it's big. It will be big, and I think
Mm,
it's going to be big in the US, but even bigger in countries which are underserved by this data. If you look in Africa, for example, lots of parts you don't have proper weather data because places are not incentivized to put up weather stations, right? Because nobody is buying the
right.
data, and so, but people need to increase their agricultural output, right, to feed their kids, and so you can do that, with a decentralized system where the community helps each other basically, and that you can solve through DePIN and crypto.
Your wealth of knowledge here, so I want to pick your brain for just a moment. I want to superimpose an analogy here on IP addresses. A lot of times, technology is used to fill a specific niche in the market, and then the technology creates the market. You see this with like IP addresses. There was only X amount of available IP addresses in IPv4 because we had never anticipated that your fridge, your car, and your shoes would need an IP address. And the world has evolved because of the advancements of computers to where it's created a whole new market. Before the market was, hey, I want to be able to send an email. And then the technology evolved to where your fridge now is interacting with the World Wide Web.
Right.
How do you see this superimposing that concept on robots? Because I feel like the use cases that we think robots will be needed for today are going to be laughable and primitive to where the ingenious use cases that robots are going to have. And I want to pick your brain to what kind of use cases you think robots would hold in the future.
Yeah, which it's endless, like
Yeah.
from space exploration, like
Right.
to to creating so much wealth for humanity that maybe our governments don't matter anymore. We can have a world government because everybody's rich enough. You don't need to fight over resources anymore, right? There's could be abundant energy probably because of fusion reactors, and then yeah, you can create anything if you have abundant energy and resources, and then robots will do anything, from surgeries to space
Yeah.
travel to building the rocket ships to anything, to being there together with us. I think
Yeah.
I'm not too much.
So that's a great answer. And the space exploration answer really does hit me deep. Because if you think about it for just a moment, we have evolved with DNA. We're biological systems. We're extremely sensitive to our environment. I mean, you put us anywhere else in space, and instantaneously our eyes will pop out of our sockets.
Right.
We need everything symmetrical. We need the room temperature to be perfect and just exactly how it should be in order for us to just live on the crust of this planet. When we talk about the conversation of nuclear weapons, it's a sober one. We're able to elicit the correct emotional response, which is this is not a joke, this is really serious. But when we see robots at Boston Dynamics doing backflips, it's like we're puzzled. Hey, is this a threat or is this really cute and cool? And I think perhaps we've evolved to have that confusion where we see this intrinsic benevolence and goodness towards machines. But perhaps our role collectively as a species is to pass this baton of life, this abstract concept of life, from something which is very confined to a very small environment to become interplanetary.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, you nailed it. You said robots can be used to go to space. We're not even talking about Alpha Centauri, which will take us 4.5 light years, even just going to Mars. If you think of who are the ideal candidates to go to Mars, they're not your intellectuals, your engineers, the people who are at the apex of human intelligence here on planet Earth. There are people who are loners, who don't have any friends, who can be isolated for an extended period of time. And that's because this universe really isn't meant for us. Like, even just going to Mars, it's like the less human you are, the better it is for the planet. So just a thing to think about where, like, we understand the threat of nuclear weapons, but we don't seem to understand the threat of technology. And and here's the weird part, even if we're aware of the threat, we're still asking every time, hey, I know this iPhone is a threat to me, but how do I make this iPhone faster sooner? And back to the point of humans just being a vessel, like this process of moving this concept of life from biology to technology is one I actually often think about. And one of the more dystopian views on where robots might take us.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, maybe it's a combination of human and robot life. That there are some cyborgs
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
future.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
You're spot on. Eventually, we're gonna be like, hey, why are we optimizing this biology? Why don't we just replace it with something that's much better suited? Yeah. So yeah, we're going to space. We're curing cancer. It's anyone's guess. It's a coin toss. But
uh,
I'm not going to ask you for a 10-year projection. But I want to know what's a 2 or 3 year projection for your company.
2 or 3 of it. Okay, funny. I have to qualify this because we are the first crypto company in the US which was qualified by the SEC to do something called a Regulation A offering, allowing us to sell our shares to non-accredited investors. We have the XYL Foundation and XYL Labs, and both are US entities. And so, we made it in the US for the last 8 years, which is pretty amazing, I think. And also XYL Labs, we sold those shares to a bunch of people, right? And now we have more than 24,000 shareholders who can even trade the stock. We are one of the third or fourth companies in the US to tokenize our stock, and it's tradable on the T0 ATS. And so we do annual and semi-annual filings, but I'm not a public company technically. But because of that, my forward-looking statements need to be limited. and and
I see. I see. I see. I see.
and so I can
Give
tell
me
you that,
a teaser for us to wonder what's coming next.
yeah, but I think we just launched our XYO Layer 1 blockchain. It's the first data-focused blockchain. As you know, that there's
Yeah.
none of them. All of them are about creating value, transferring value between each other, and it's for sorry, not between each other. It's for value transfers, and we built one from the scratch for data, and it's very efficient not only for data storage but also for data analytics, certainty around data, and everything data really. And so
Mm.
for us in the near future, right, we're gonna build more components for that layer one and onboard more data hungry industries and partners into it. We have a very large DePIN network which generates a lot of data, right, which is a good showcase. But then we're gonna onboard other crypto companies, AI companies, and so on onto our layer one,
Mm.
and it's going to be an exciting time. And then
Yeah.
we have lots of partnerships in the works in a number of industries. We have dozens of partners, and really exciting stuff is coming this year.
Very, very cool. So, Marcus, how could people get in touch with you?
In touch with me is not so important. Maybe in touch with the project.
You, the
Follow.
project, whatever the best way is to get information that you're offering is the way to
Yeah,
go.
follow us on Twitter. I think that's the first one. It's official XYO is our handle. Once you're there, I think we tease you and capture you. Check out our website xyo.network. If you want to dive deeper into XYO and a little intrigued about what Michael and I talked about, you can also send an email to partnerships@xyo.network if you have some partnerships ideas, some other things you want to discuss. we're there. And if you want to connect with me personally, check out my LinkedIn, Markus Levin, and you just find me there and connect with me.
Marcus, it was an honest pleasure talking to you. This was a great conversation. I like we went from the theory to the hands-on. It's been a great time. So thank you for your time and wisdom.
Likewise, Michael. Great energy. I really loved it. Thank you.